I'm Jared Haynes, and this is Rogue Outdoors. Today I'm excited to talk to you about the Christensen Arms Ranger chambered in .22 long rifle. For approximately $850, this rifle sits kind of in that mid-price range. The lower end 22s are anywhere from about $180 to $400. Then you get to that mid-range, which usually jumps up a little bit. You're about $600 to $1,200. And then you have the high end, which are going to be somewhere around $2,000 to $5,000 for a .22 long rifle. Now this one performs amazing. We're going to go outside in just a few minutes, and I'm going to show you the groups that I'm getting at 25, 50, and 100 yards. Let's cover some of the specifications and technical features on this rifle before heading out to the range. So you're going to come in at 5.1 pounds on this rifle before adding scopes and accessories to it, and that is a really good weight. It's just heavy enough that once you put a scope, bipod, suppressor, those kind of things on it, it's going to sit if you're trying to shoot those farther distances. However, it's a light enough weight rifle that you can pack it around all day. It's not like the chassis systems where they're pretty cumbersome and heavy. So I find it to be a really good mid-ground if you do a lot of plinking, which most people with the .22 are going to do. They use the Ruger 1022 magazines. These things are an absolute workhorse. They're easy to find, and they're really, really reliable. So I'm glad to see that they went with that on this rifle. They didn't go with something proprietary that's expensive or hard to find. You're always going to be able to get replacements or extras or whatever you want to do. It comes with a pick rail on it, which is awesome. You don't have to get any proprietary scope rings. You can just run basic pick rail scope rings, and then on a .22 you don't have all that much recoil, so you don't have to go with crazy expensive ones if you don't want to. I've been finding these are just a cheap, like $30 pair of scope rings, and as you'll see here in just a minute, I get really good groups out of that. They're using a carbon fiber tension locked barrel, which is really accurate. I'm impressed. I don't know who they go through, but whoever's making the barrels for them does a really good job, and I've seen really good performance out of the rifling that they have inside of this. And then the bolt is kind of a mid-level bolt in my opinion. So it definitely is not as smooth as if you're getting up into the $1,500 to $2,500 price range. The cycle right here is smooth, which it should be. However, when you get to this point and click down, it has those two kind of clicks. It definitely lets you know that there's a positive bolt throw in motion, and so when the bolt is down and you're ready to shoot. But it's just a little bit stiffer. It takes a little bit to make sure you push it forward, click, click, and you're in. I have not had a round get caught up, and I've had no issues with ejections, so it is a good bolt system, but it is just a little bit more clunky than if you go with an ultra high end, although it's considerably smoother than most of the low ends. They run a TriggerTech trigger in here, and I'm going to set this back here so that you can see. It is really good. There's no take up, and you're going to see right here, it is just a crisp break. So just push, 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 boom. It's set a little bit heavier the way that I have it right now. I like that, so if I'm wearing gloves, I get a good positive feel and pull through that shot. It is adjustable if you want to adjust that. But having that in there, again, just another really good feature. And the last thing I want to touch on is going to be that it comes threaded for a suppressor. The two that I've found that work the best with this rifle combination where you're just hearing the firing pin is going to be either the Huxworks Rad 22, which now they've moved on to like their Flow series, or the Mask from Dead Air. So let's cover a couple things on the ammo, and then we're going to head outside. So oftentimes with .22s, when you're talking those longer distances, especially going past that 75 to 100 yard range, often you're looking at higher end ammo going into match grade, Lapua Center X or Midas or different things like that. This rifle, I don't know if they just specifically designed it around this, but you're able to get really good results, and what we're going to shoot today is going to be the CCI standard velocity. The standard velocities, I feel, are a very consistent ammo for the price. They have a good like little wax end on there to make sure that they're getting a good run down the barrel. But they're affordable and you can find them almost anywhere. And that's one thing that really impressed me about this rifle, and what you're gonna see is the groups that we're getting at the 25, 50, 100-yard distance are extremely good for the price. This thing can compete with rifles in that $1,500 price range, and it's quite a bit cheaper. And I do want to go over the target that we're going to be shooting. So the target itself is just a T-Rex target that I print out, and I have a 1/2 inch square that I put in the center of it. So when we're out there shooting at 25, 100, and 50 yards, this will be what we're shooting at. We're back at 25 yards, going to shoot the CCI standard velocity, group of 5. Let's see what this will do. Okay, got a little carried away through a few extra shots, but that's a pretty darn tight group. Let's go and head back to 50. We're back at 50 yards. You're gonna have to ignore the light spots that are shining through from the target that's underneath. The sun's kind of in the backdrop, and so you're gonna see down bottom left of that bullseye a few light spots. And because on the 25 yards I shot over the 5 rounds, I'm going to shoot like 9 rounds at 50, so you can get a true opinion of what this is going to look like group wise. So let's go ahead and throw some. 50 yards. Okay, so what I would say to that right there is, as you could see earlier, my adjustments are set per my CZ457. So I'm a little bit high still and a little bit left with the wind that's blowing. But that group is pretty darn good. There's a couple outliers, obviously. And all the trigger pulls felt great, so I'd attribute that just to a little bit of change in ammo. But so far, that's a pretty darn good group. Let's go back to 100, and then we're going to set all these targets up next to each other, and you can decide for yourself how accurate you think this Christensen Arms Ranger is. We're going to shoot one last group at 100 yards. Let's go ahead and throw these down range. Again, we're going to do, 8 shots, 9 shots, something like that. 100 yards. Okay, so as you can see there, that group definitely widened up a little bit. I'm shooting 9 power on this, a little bit of a side wind, but I think that's what you're getting when you are at this price range. Basically, you're not in that ultra high end, which is going to be a tiny group, but that's pretty impressive shooting just basic standard velocity ammo at 100 yards with a fairly cheap Cabela's 9 power scope. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's get the targets, compare them side by side, and then head back inside to close this video out. Before we head inside, I wanted to talk over each one of these targets and give you a couple thoughts on it. So first off, we got our 25-yard target. This one's roughly a 1/2 inch square. All of these are just hand drawn by me. If you see, if I put my thumb over this, you're gonna be blocking all of those holes. So I had one little outlier right there. Could have been ammunition, could have been me, but at 25 yards, that's just one oddity of 22s that you have to live with. But that is a really good group for however many shots it was, like 8 shots, something like that. Then we move into our 50-yard target. So again, I was going off the CZ 457, so I shot down here just to get a couple test shots, was off to the left a little bit, and I was actually aiming at the bottom of the paper, so I made a tiny bit of an adjustment. Here's our group, definitely opened up, so if you look at my thumb, the core is right here, but I had these 3 that kind of push it, maybe those 2, because my thumb, if I'm putting it there, does kind of block that guy. I use that as kind of a good guess of if it's within an MOA or not. So that's a pretty decent group, again, at 50 yards. I'm happy with that, with just using the standard velocity ammo. And then here's our 100-yard target. So these 2 were the test shots that we took. This definitely a lot more sporadic. Now I had a little bit more wind at 100 yards than I had at those others, like the wind is picked up because it's getting a little bit later into the evening. But I am pretty happy with this. This shows kind of the difference of when you're in the ultra high-end 22s and when you're in kind of this mid-class or upper mid-class 22 range. This is what you should be expecting. Now, if you went with a little bit higher powered scope, dialed in the turret a little bit more, I just took this off of a different 22, put it on here, was using different ballistics. You know, if I really dialed those couple things in, this would tighten up a little bit for sure. Even if I went with a little bit higher end ammo, I believe this would tighten up. But you're going to be expecting a group a little bit closer to this, you know, 1.5 MOA, maybe 2 MOA group at that 100 yards. If that is acceptable for you for a 22, this thing is an amazing rifle. If this is not acceptable at 100 yards for you, then you're going to want to bump up to a different price range because this, you know, this is about as good as it gets in this $850,000 and below price range. You're jumping up quite a bit more when you're trying to tighten it up a lot more than this. Well, now that you've seen this rifle perform out in the field, we've gone over some of the technical features and the specifications on it. I hope this helps you decide if this is the right rifle for you. In my opinion, it performs above its price grade. Like I said, you're going to get this thing for around $150, and to me, it should be considered with rifles in that $1,000 to about $2,000 price range. The bolt's pretty smooth. Up to that 100 yards, you're getting really phenomenal groups. Out past that, it will start to open up a little bit, but it's still, you know, shootable at steel targets and things like that. Once you put a suppressor on this, oh my gosh, you know, you just hear the firing pin, and that's a pretty cool feeling. I mean, it's like movie quiet. And the look and finish of this rifle is phenomenal. The spider webbing that they have on here, the stock feel, the carbon fiber barrel is immaculately done and put on here. The pick rail is professional on here. I mean, it looks good. The coatings that they're using are good. And I would expect this rifle to last a long time. So I hope you liked this review. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel for more content like this coming out soon. Thank you for watching.